My first tour, I was making $50 a day. 3 shows a week. You can do the math on that. Try living on $600 a month in Nashville.
Welcome back to the Stephan Hogan podcast. I am your host, Stephan Hogan, and today we are diving into the world of country music with a special focus on one of its brightest stars, Morgan Wallen. Often hailed as the biggest country superstar globally, clinched the title of Billboard's Top Country Artist of 2023 with his latest chart topper album, One Thing at a Time. Dominated the Billboard charts at number 1 for an unprecedented 19 weeks, setting a new record among country albums. Joining us is the man behind the lens, Matt Pasker. Matt's career spans an impressive array of talents, having directed and photographed renowned artists like Tim McGraw, Morgan Wallen, Ben Rector, Jake Owen, John Party, Florida Georgia Line, and a ton of others. His work earned him a nomination for CMA Tour Photographer of the Year. Currently, Matt serves as Morgan Wallen's personal photographer, capturing the electrifying energy of sold-out stadiums around the world. I recently caught him in action at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, where Morgan drew over 150,000 fans across 3 nights. Beyond the stage, Matt creates visually stunning content for major brands including ESPN, Netflix, LG, Ford, Bud Light, Camping World, the NFL Draft, just to name a few. Today we're going to explore everything from his current projects to personal topics like mental health, balancing life as a husband and father, being on tour, and the candid realities of that life. Please welcome my new friend, Matt Paskert.
We do the same show every night, essentially. You know, there's some slight differences and some little changes, but like there's 180 something people or whatever the number is out there trying to make the show the exact same every night. Make it perfect. Make it flow from start to finish every night.
So that's the staff for Morgan.
Yeah, like the crew is like, we want to make every day run the same, understandably, because they're trying to run an operation. There's like 35 semis. It's a massive operation. And then there's me and a couple other guys that are out there going, how do we make every night different when there's people fighting to make it the same every night? And that's where the creative really kind of comes in on that side, and trying to constantly just one-up myself. And how can I be better than myself from the night before, from the week before, from the year before, you know?
How did you meet Morgan?
The first time I met him was in 2017. I was with a band called 1,000 Horses that had a song called Smoke.
Yeah.
And he had
They were on Scott Borchetta's label.
Yeah, they're on Big Machine. Yeah. So they were playing in San Jose, California. I think it was San Jose, San something, California, at a place called the Rodeo Club.
Yeah, it's in San Jose.
Yeah. Really not a great place, you know? But Morgan was opening for him, and he had written, at the time, their current radio single, Preaching to the Choir. So him and his band, who now, like, it's funny because now I'm super close to, it's the same band guys. Morgan's had the same guys forever. So it's all those same guys that were there. They rolled up in a Sprinter van. He had like a Mohawk kind of thing going on at the time. And he came up and sang that song with them because he'd written it. So that was the first time that I'd met him. And then the next year in 2018, he was opening for Jake Owen, who I was touring with at the time. And we hung out a lot backstage, and Jake liked to he had like a little studio set up backstage, and he liked to make just stupid songs. Like we had a song called The Backstage Barbershop that him and Morgan like sang. And it's just things like that like you kind of grow a little bit of a bond. And then being within that kind of big loud umbrella with the Jake stuff and then Larry Fleet eventually, it all kind of just started growing and growing to the point where Big Loud was like, hey, do you know anyone that can do this content for this Morgan Wallen guy at the end of that Jake tour? And there's a guy named David Lair who I knew on Instagram that was super talented and super incredible. And I was like, this is the guy, you know, and he worked for them for 5 years. Turns out we're neighbors. He lives like literally a stone's throw from my house.
Oh, wow.
And so we became super close friends. And then when Morgan started doing the stadiums last year, he called and was like, do you know anyone that would want to like shoot photos only for this stadium tour? And I was like, yeah, man, give me some more information. And so he kind of fed me some more info. And I was like, is it crazy if I throw my own name into that hat? And so that's kind of how it got to where it is. And then we went out there, and David and I obviously like have the previous relationship. Morgan was comfortable with me, knew who I was because we'd crossed paths 100 times in the last few years, you know? And so that's kind of how the stadium tour worked out. And then this is year 2 of shooting stadiums with Morgan.
For everybody listening, I bought a ticket to go see Matt, not Morgan, to the Morgan Wallen show at Nissan Stadium. I happened to park at Bridgestone Arena, not knowing that it was at Nissan Stadium. But I Ubered there, and it all worked out.
It's hilarious.
But I was looking for you. And the intro with Theo Vaughn, were you behind him?
I was right in front of them.
You were in front of them? Okay. I wasn't sure, but I was like, you got to be in there somewhere taking pictures for the... and I noticed that Morgan will turn around at the end of some songs and like he does some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Is that intentional for you to have a moment for pictures?
I really don't know. Whether we're up there or not, a lot of times he'll do that. Like I think a big part of that for him, and I don't want to speak for him, but if I had to guess, I think he does that just to kind of relate and connect with the band again. Because when they're doing clubs and they're doing theaters and stuff, like you're all so close. But there's times, you saw how long that thrust is. The stage is in the end zone and that MW in the middle, that's at like the opposing 40-yard line.
Yeah.
So you're literally like 150 feet out. I think that's whatever, 50 yards times 300.
Yeah.
Like that's a long way away. I was going to say
I felt about 50 yards from my golf thinking back in the day. Like it looked like a 50, and that is a long way, man, to be from your band.
Yeah, because almost every song, he will go all the way, even if he's at the end of the thrust, at the end of the song, he will go almost all the way back to where the band is, whether he's checking the set list, getting water, wiping sweat off his face, or just he'll have moments where he just like smiles at the band and has those kind of connecting moments that I think are so cool. And yeah, of course, we've kind of learned a few of those moments, like at the end of You Proof, he always turns around and kind of mimics the words with some hand movements. And like, it's always cool to be right here when he turns around, he's looking right at you and you're like, got it. Especially like wide angle when you have like the wristband lights, all the Pix Mob stuff. It's like some of those moments are pretty epic. So whether he does it on purpose or not for us, it works out in our favor.
Yeah. Do you ever have those conversations where it's like, hey man, like does he ever request a certain photo or angle, or is he ever like, man, that was sick, like let's do that again, or anything like that? Or does he pretty much just say like, Matt or whoever, management, like do your thing?
He kind of trusts us, honestly. There's definitely stuff that he likes more than others, and there's certain angles that he does like more of himself, as any of us would.
Oh, yeah, I got a good side and a bad side.
Yeah, he didn't have a bad side, but but no, there's definitely certain things that we know that he likes. He likes if you get him with some sick fire, that's always cool. If he looks good and strong, especially in the middle of like a big movement, and you've got some flames in the background, like that's always cool. But at the end of the day, like he trusts our creative and he trusts our eye. And I think that's part of why he likes having us, and part of why, it is me and David and it's people that he's known for a long time, because I think so much of that trust is so important to get those moments, especially the backstage stuff, because those are really intimate moments. There's a lot of times like right before the show, the band walks up on the stage and it'll be like me, David, Morgan, and like one or two other people just backstage right before the show when he's like getting hyped up and he's like getting prepped for the show before like we call it the Elvis walk when he walks out, like with Broadway girls. But like there's a lot of those really intimate moments that I feel like having that creative trust is almost necessary. It would create more work for him if we didn't have that, because then he'd be like, well, I want this and this and this, versus we can kind of go, hey man, this is fucking cool. What do you think about this? And he turns that and it's awesome. Or sometimes it's not, and that's the cool thing about Morgan, is he lets us try stuff.
That's awesome.
Like if we want to go for something, he's super cool about us going, hey, can we try this? He'll almost always go, yeah, let's try it. Like, hey, come over here. Let's do some photos here. This looks cool. If it works out, cool. If not, it doesn't matter. It's a minute of everybody's time, and it's kind of high risk, high reward,
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you talk about those moments, those candid moments behind stage, because it's almost, for me and for the audience in general, they want to see. And I interviewed a guy and he said, this is one of my favorite things I've ever heard. He was like, everybody tells stories. He said, don't tell a story, tell a secret. And I feel like,
damn,
it's right. It's cool because when you get those moments, that's intimate, and it is that secret.
Yeah.
And as a viewer or the person on the other side, the receiving end of that piece of art, of that moment captured in time, it does feel like you are let in, like the veil's pulled back and you get to see like the secret.
You can't buy a ticket to that.
No.
You know?
No, man.
Like that's what I love the most, is because I feel like that's what makes each show different. You know, other than his outfits, you know, or the jersey that he wears. Like every city we go to for the encore, he wears a jersey of, you know, the team that, whatever arena or stadium that we're playing in. So that makes it different. But other than that, I mean, what makes things different really is those moments. Like the most iconic stuff my favorite stuff of him is not even the stage stuff. I mean, that stuff's epic, of course. Like you got 60, 70,000 people out there screaming. They've all got their wristbands and their phones up and all that stuff. Like it's epic. But we can take the same shot every night if we wanted to. You know, that stuff backstage is like, especially every day, every show before, like he does the prayer, even like the walk, like you're talking about the walkout, like they have a lot of guests at a lot of different shows. And like those moments make that different from tomorrow, you know, from yesterday. So I think you're right. Tell a secret, not a story. I mean, that's pretty sweet, dude.
Yeah.
Like I love that.
Yeah. I wish I came up with it, but you're welcome to keep using it.
I'm going to steal it. Yeah.
You should steal it. You should steal it and pass it on, because it's such a good way to think as a creative.
Yeah.
It's kind of shifted my thinking, and it makes me think like, okay, I've always thought stories is the, you know, best form of marketing, or stories are what draws people in.
Facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah, exactly. But then I'm like, let's go a layer deeper, and that's what he made me think of. Like, how do I tell this secret?
Who was that said that?
His name's Rob Floyd. He's on Bar Rescue. He does all the cocktail. He's a mixologist.
Yeah.
He did a alcoholic whipped cream with Cardi B.
Nice.
Called Whip Shots.
Nice.
Yeah, but he's kind of like the go-to mixologist dude for like America. It feels like he's on Good Morning America all the time and Access Hollywood and stuff like that. But it's cool because he is an artist in the sense that he doesn't just make drinks. He has a lab. He does science, and he'll like freeze a drink or turn a drink into cotton candy and crazy things and fly it in on drones and make an experience for people. And he calls it cocktail theater. But he's a really smart guy. He reads a book a week, and he's just like a wealth of knowledge. And it's cool to sit down with people. That's my favorite part of podcasting, honestly, is just getting to know people and just having a conversation and learning from him.
Well, that's what we said. Like at the end of this, like, hope we leave friends, you know?
Yeah, that's what I want, man. And that's what it's really all about, you know, it's relationships to me are the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
Outside, I mean, it really is. You know, your relationship with your wife and with your son, and for me with my wife and family, and then who I meet. Those are the things that make life worth living.
Absolutely.
Let's geek out for a sec.
Okay.
So there's two shooters. You and David.
It's three. Me and
three?
Two guys named David.
Oh, double Davids.
Yeah.
Okay. So do either of you have different jobs with different lenses, or do you switch out lenses?
We definitely switch out lenses.
Okay.
So between the three of us, I do all stills. New David, we call him, does all video. And then old David does kind of a combination of both. But it just depends. I mean, there's certain moments when you need tighter shots, you know.
And that's what I was curious about, because the lighting is always an issue. And Morgan has a spotlight on him. So I was curious, and this is the geeking out part for people that don't do photos.
Yeah.
But like, where does I'm assuming you're using lenses that have a really low aperture.
Yeah.
So you can get in a lot of light and have a faster shutter speed without blur of Morgan or the band or whatever.
Yeah.
But do you have to crank your ISO to be able to get pictures in that environment? Or do you feel like it's just very well lit?
If the spotlights are on, we have zero lighting issues at all. Okay. I mean, we'll be shooting at like 200 ISO at like f2.8 at like 1/1000th of a second. I mean, it's basically like daylight out there.
So your pictures are perfectly clear.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially when you're shooting with these Sonys at such low ISOs, like like for the fire, for example. I mean, we'll be underexposing by like 5 or 6 stops to the point where like when you're looking for the viewfinder, it's like black.
Wow.
But the fire is so bright that then you can bring up all those shadows because you're shooting at ISO 100, 200, you know? My favorite moments in the show are right at the ends of the songs or right at the beginning of the songs when the spotlights aren't on, when it's just the color washes. Because those are kind of the most moody, like the silhouette stuff. Like that's what I love the most. He's also usually away from the microphone during those moments, so you can kind of get better expressions, and he'll notice people in the crowd because the lights aren't just blinding him, you know. So during those moments, yeah, we're cranking the ISO up to. I mean, there's photos that he's used that we've shot at like 51,200 ISO.
Really?
Yeah. I add grain to every single photo that I do.
You do?
Like I've made my own grain. So I've exposed, developed, and scanned film with the intention of making my own grain.
As an overlay.
Exactly. So I'll add that to almost everything just because I feel like it gives each photo a little bit of that character. And I dive pretty deep in on the editing side, so I'm throwing a lot of different effects or blurs or tilt shifts and all kinds of different stuff on there. So to me, adding that grain back in after kind of brings that softness back to normal. And obviously the film look is hot right now, so that helps too.
Yeah, but it glues it together in a sense.
It makes it more natural because if you go and you add some crazy blur in, then the part that's not blurred is going to be, if you're shooting at high ISO, is going to be grainy, and then the stuff that's blurred isn't, just because you're blurring out that grain. So then you add the grain back in and it's like, okay, cool. Now the whole thing looks like it was supposed to be. It makes it look more like it was shot in camera than in post.
I think of musicians, anybody in a creative industry as someone, like you said, always trying to do the next thing.
Yeah.
We just can't help it.
Yeah.
There's just this drive, this intangible drive.
Yeah.
To want to be better, push, challenge, almost do something where we're nervous before we do it.
Yeah.
You know?
If you're not scared, it's not going to be awesome. It'll be good, but it might not be awesome.
And that's what I'm learning, is to embrace adrenaline.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things is for you talking about grain and you making your own and being able to hold a photo and the evolution of you as a photographer creating your art. People look at a photo and they think, oh, it's a picture, because they take it for granted because they can do it on their iPhone.
Yeah.
But there's so much that goes into what you do that separates everybody with a camera on their phone to the actual art side.
I always try and just beat myself. Just always trying to kind of one-up myself and always trying to just be better at everything I do. Like, I don't like to go in and half-ass anything. My wife makes fun of me for it, but like, if I'm gonna do something, like,
you full ass it.
I'm gonna full ass it. Yeah, dude. There's no half-ass. It is full ass. Maybe 150% assing it. You know. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I as far as my style, like, it's just what I like, and it's changed and it's evolved over the years. Like, every couple of years, I go and completely wipe and completely redo my website, and I'll go back to photos I've taken 10 years ago and re-edit them with what I like to do now. And that's honestly one of my favorite things in the world to do, because you go back and you take that and you go, this photo that I thought stopped here, I now brought it up to here. So then the next time, how do I bring it up to here? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not I want people to know that this is my style. Like, just recently in the past 6 or 8 months, people have started going, I know that's your photo. Or like, because, you know, with the 3 of us out there, like, Morgan will post 10 photos and half of them will be mine, half of them will be David's. They tag both of us and people will be like, I know which ones are yours and I know which ones are David's. And that was something that every time people say them, like, really? Like, how do you tell? Because I'm sitting there going, I know which ones are mine, of course, but like, I'm going, but David's are awesome and David's might be better, or this, you know. So it's hard to, like, and a lot of times there is that imitation where, well, this is better and people like this, so should I try that? But I've tried as much as I can to tune out what people think about it, because back to the Rick Rubin thing, like, I forget the exact quote, so I'm going to butcher it, but I've seen a million clips of him on Instagram and all that, and listened to podcasts with him and stuff. But he talks about, if you're making a record for the fans, you're doing it wrong. You know, you need to make the record for you. And I think that's kind of true even with all these artists that are at the top. Like, they weren't going, hey, how can I make this hit, or how can I do this or that? Like, they went and they were like, hey, this would be cool. I like this. And then I think that passion is really what resonates with people. You know, if I'm sitting there going, I need to make this because this person wants this to be this way, like, I'm no longer doing it for me. Like, obviously we're doing things for Morgan. We're doing things for the people that employ us. But at the same time, like, if he was like, hey, dude, I don't like your style, I want you to completely change the way you do things, like, that's no longer creatively fulfilling for me. And in that situation, like, then there's a decision to be made. It's like, well, what's more important? You know what I mean?
Yeah, your artistic integrity versus just making money.
Yeah, and Morgan would never do that because there is that creative trust and there is that, hey, like...
Which is how it should be.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's working with a top tier creative person in the business world, any company that hires anybody from Silicon Valley to a photographer to go on arena tours, you hire great people for a reason.
Yeah.
And you don't micromanage them. You say, go be great at what you're great at.
Exactly.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah, I was talking to a photographer. We did Stagecoach a couple weeks ago. There's a photographer named Kevin Wong that is big on Instagram, and followed him for a while. Super cool guy. Got to meet him and hang out with him for a while and just ask questions. And it was super cool because his work has been everywhere for years. You know, as I came up, like, I looked up to him. So it was crazy. Like, at first I didn't even know who he was. And they were like, that's Kevin Wong. I was like, no way. That's crazy, you know? So then I really dove in, and he was talking about working with clients. And he said, he's like, before anyone books me, before I let anyone sign a contract, sign a check or anything, he goes, I send them my portfolio and go, this is what I do. If you want this, I can do that for you. If you don't like or want this, I'm not the right guy for you. And there's times when we do stuff we don't want to do because life is expensive and Nashville is out of control.
Oh, man.
You know, so like, we do take jobs we don't want to do, but I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can kind of go, here's my thing, here's my style, I can go do this for you, you know? And if they're like, well, can we do that, but with a little bit of the artist flair? Because obviously they have their brands and stuff too that you do have to kind of meet in the middle. But if you're not willing to at least meet me in the middle, like, that's not really something that I want to put creative effort into when I could put creative effort into something that I'm passionate about. And that's always going to turn out better. Mm-hmm. If you love something, you're going to put more work into it. You're going to put more effort into it. My wife makes fun of me because, like, sometimes, hey, dinner's ready. Cool, I'll be down in 1 minute. I'm just going to finish up this photo. And 30 minutes later, it's like, you know, I've got this masterpiece, let's call it. But she's like, now dinner's cold. And I'm like, well, I kind of, but you don't even, she gets it. But you don't even know that you don't even know it's been an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or like.
You don't, man.
Like, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to dive in and mess with this photo. And all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. and I'm like, my son's going to wake up at 6:30 regardless of what time I go to bed. And I'm not going to miss the morning with him. So it's 2.5 hours of sleep tonight, you know?
I find a lot of parallels between you and me just hearing you talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Because first off, we're both married with a son and 2 dogs.
Yep.
Now you're about to have a daughter.
Yeah.
Which is my hope on our second child.
One of each.
Yeah, it's a perfect combo.
Yeah.
But I'll be happy with 2 boys as well.
Yeah.
All my friends always said I full flex. Or whatever I did, I always went like straight at it.
Yeah.
I didn't half-ass it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I full-assed it, bro. And that's just how I am in life in general. And it's interesting because I have that creative drive. And you have that creative drive. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm going with this parallel. My brain works a certain way, and I know even from our conversation prior to filming that your brain works a certain way as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a hard time shutting off your brain?
It doesn't. I don't have a hard time. I find it impossible. It doesn't shut off. You know, I mean, even like sleeping, like, yeah, to answer your question, yes, 100%, you know, like if I'm laying in bed, like hey, we have to have the TV on. We do it on the sleep timer because sleeping all night with the TV on is terrible for you. But like, we have a 30-minute sleep timer every night because if I don't have something to stimulate my brain, like you were talking about, like the white noise and different, like if I don't have something stimulating my brain, then my brain's just going to do this and it's never going to stop.
My wife here, she has to fall asleep listening to a show.
Yeah.
But for me,
Is it Friends? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those ones that you can watch a million seasons of.
Oh yeah. I've seen every episode of Friends like 50 times, but there's every time I watch it, there's still a moment that I miss because that was when I fell asleep, you know?
That's funny. Yeah, for me, I can't, it's so hard for me to shut my brain off.
Yeah.
And I find this with a lot of creatives. And I'm kind of like dealing with this back and forth philosophy on it, which is being a creative, is that almost just the reason we're able to do what we do because we have a brain that functions a certain way?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, I feel like if my brain wasn't constantly flowing with ideas, it's kind of like a shotgun. You shoot it and you hope one of the pellets hits, you know, and I feel like my brain is just constantly, it's idea. And then one out of every 100 or whatever is something great, and I put that into existence, and a lot of times it works out. But there's 99 terrible ideas that my brain has come up with in the process, you know, and if it wasn't constantly moving, if it wasn't constantly going and trying, again, to outdo itself, then I don't think that I would have that drive. You know, I think a lot of that is just the brain going. Because there's times when you're laying in bed and it's midnight or whatever, and I'm like, I gotta go do this, because if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. If I don't write this down, if I don't go and edit this photo or write out this idea, it's not going to happen. You know, so I try to feed off of that. I try to look at every crutch, because there's a lot of times I'm like, I wish I could turn my brain off, because I know we mentioned intrusive thoughts and stuff earlier.
I wish I could, like, just there was a switch.
God, that would be awesome. You know, and I wouldn't use it all the time because I do like, you know, I've suffered with a lot of mental health stuff. It's something that really has been troublesome in my life. But I also, like, right now, like, I'm completely medication free. I don't do any medication for mental health stuff. And because I truly believe, like, every time I've tried the medication, it takes that edge off. But that edge to me is what pushes me. Trying to push past that and trying to push, like, that is what I think really kind of pushes me to the next level. Like, the anxiety and the fear of everything falling apart is what makes me go, I need to make this shit 10 times better than last time. Because if I just deliver the same thing, it's just going to dissolve. Someone's going to pass me up, you know? Like, especially now in the position that we're in with Morgan, like, we can sit there and watch, especially like David with his videos that he makes, we can sit there and watch him put out a video, and then the next week or a couple weeks later, you can watch 5 artists copy this transition or this color grade or this thing. So if we're not constantly evolving, everyone else is closing that gap. So we have to continue to raise the level so that gap gets higher and higher. And all that's going to do is bring all of creativity up within the music scene. If we can all grow together, like, there's room for all of us.
Yeah, you guys are at the highest level. We always look to who's the best a lot of times.
I don't think I'm the best, for the record.
Yeah, and you're never going to think you're the best. And that's what is going to keep driving you to want to be the best, which you're never going to find that you are the best.
No.
And I think even the best musicians are people that are going to never be the best or say they're the best. They're the ones that are going to be like, I could be better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps you improving.
Because if you believe that you're the best, then there's no reason to get better.
Yeah. How do you feel about cocky people?
Cocky people?
Yeah.
I'm not really a big fan. I think there's a massive difference between confidence and cockiness. I'm very confident in what I do. Like, it'd be crazy for me to say that I don't think that I'm good at what I do, because there's no way to get to this level without being good. But I'm learning from people all of the time. Like, I am on YouTube, I am on Instagram, I am talking to people, I'm learning, I'm trying to collaborate. Like, there's so many times when I'll see, like, a photographer on Instagram that shoots for an artist that's playing for 200 people, but the photo is fucking awesome. And I go in there and I'm like, you know what? Like, I DM them all the time. I follow them, like, can you talk to me about what you did with this? Because it's insane, you know? And most of them are like, oh my God, I look up to you. I'm like, I don't want to talk about me. I'm asking what you do. Like, let's talk about like how you did that. Because if you can do something that makes a club look amazing and then bring that creativity into a stadium environment that looks just naturally 100 times cooler because there's fire and lasers and wristband lights and all that stuff, like, then that elevates us even more. And that's what I've tried to do in the last couple of years with the Morgan thing, is work with an artist named Larry Fleet, who's one of my best friends, like amazing human, like one of the best humans, seriously ever. He had a song called Where I Find God that is like maybe my favorite song ever. It's top 5 for sure. It's just an unbelievable song. There's a line in there that you can't find peace in a bottle or a pill. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man. You know, the night I hit rock bottom sitting on an old bar stool, it's like all of these things that are so relatable. The guy can just click with people. But he's playing these smaller venues. Every year the venues are growing. But last year I had the really interesting kind of opportunity to go from doing clubs with Larry in the spring, doing stadiums with Morgan all summer, doing theaters with Larry in the fall, doing theaters with Larry in the spring, and then doing stadiums again with Morgan, and hope to do some dates with Larry in the fall as well. But going back and forth from, club and theater to stadium, club and theater to stadium was a wild experience for me, because it was really cool to bring the things I've learned from a stadium to these smaller venues, and bring the things I learned from these smaller venues to the stadiums. And that like kind of weird dichotomy of balancing those two things, it's challenging because they're both easier in different ways and they're both harder in different ways. Stadiums are physically huge. Logistically speaking, it's very difficult to get from here to here to here. Whereas clubs, it takes me 10 steps to get from here to here. But then the lighting in the stadium is great. The lighting in the clubs is usually just terrible, So trying to like constantly do those things to humble myself and go, hey, if I can shoot a club, and that's what I tell a lot of photographers that work with smaller artists. I go, how do you do what I'm like, if you can kick ass in a club, when you walk into a stadium, the hardest part is going to be just physically the steps that you put in. Like each show, we're doing like 25,000 steps.
That's what I was going to ask. You got to be burning so many calories.
It's crazy. I literally was talking about this on the phone with someone this morning. I was like, I literally eat on the road. I'm eating like 3,500 calories a day. I have a really fast metabolism on top of that, so that's just genetics. But like, I'm not kidding when I'm telling you I'm doing 25,000 steps a day out there, and those aren't like casual steps. Yeah. We're hauling ass.
Yeah, because everything's moving so fast. What I liked was when Morgan went out to the back and you did the acoustic set.
Yeah.
And played Stand on My Boots. Mm-hmm. Do you have to go out there for that, or does someone else, or do you guys get like a little break and a rest?
We go out there. That's one of my favorite parts of the show.
That was my favorite part.
That is the coolest thing. This last show on the Saturday show, I actually rigged a camera to the piano. So the piano, like, I think night 1, I don't remember which night you went, but
I went Thursday night.
Thursday. 1. So Thursday, they lost power to that entire stage, like right before he walked onto it. So normally I
noticed it was pretty grainy, and like then someone flicked on a light that they had on their camera.
Literally.
But I liked that it was grainy.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a look.
It's kind of a vibe.
Yeah, it was a vibe.
Yeah. But normally that piano that he's on rises up on a scissor lift like 30 feet in the air. So which is just a really cool moment. So I actually rigged a camera to the piano on Saturday and sent it up with him. And I had a RF remote that I was triggering it with. So like that's one of my favorite parts of the show. But it's difficult to shoot because the stage is so small. Like we can't really go up there with him. Yeah. So it's just trying to find angles. And if you go around on the crowd side, you're fighting all these people to try and get an angle, because as soon as he walks out there, everyone in that section runs down to the edge.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most challenging and one of the most fun for me creatively parts of the show.
Yeah.
And the cover me up thing with the phone lights on top of the wristbands that's just, I mean, if that doesn't raise the hair on your arms, I don't know what will,
Dude, I'm feeling it right now, bro.
Yeah.
I like, because he has such a great voice.
Yeah.
That it really lets his voice shine.
Yeah.
It lets the true talent. And what he said is, it's all about like the early days playing acoustic, playing a writer's round.
Yeah.
Writing songs in a room with a couple people.
Yeah.
And if the song can stand on its own acoustic, then it can stand in a stadium with a band. I'm curious. I want to see the photos that you got. Did they turn out good?
Yeah. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
How long? What's your turnaround on photos?
Like 12 hours. We're usually turned because we have this thing called Event Shop. A guy named Spencer Combs is another awesome Nashville creative.
What's it called?
Event Shop.
Okay.
So he basically it's a company that he has that sells merchandise. So what we do is we take photos and then we turn in photos to Event Shop as soon as possible. And then they blast out to everyone that was at the show. If you scan out the QR code on the screen or whatever, and then you can buy merch with our photos on it the next day.
Wow. Yeah, I saw. Get your favorite photos or get photos from the show.
Yeah. So we have to turn them around pretty quick for that. But cool. I try to turn them in by 10 a.m., maybe noon the next day, because I like to go through the night of and sort all the photos and pick the selects, and then go in with fresh eyes and edit. And also my eyes are really bad with light and they get really dry and stuff. So going straight from, fire and lasers and light in my eyes to sitting on a computer for hours, just, it really if cinema and stuff, a Pro Mist filter for everyone watching, that's what my eyes are like after a show. Everything's just hazy and it's kind of wild.
And you can't wear blue blockers either. Well, you could, but it would affect your coloring.
Well, I'm colorblind, so.
You are?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And you're a photographer.
Yeah, it's wild. That's what everyone says. They're wait, and you're a photographer? I'm yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
In what sense?
Colorblind would be I would point to a color and say, what color is that? And you would be
yeah.
You wouldn't know what it is?
So anything with red or green. So red and green to me are just brown.
Okay.
But that spills over into pink. Pink is light gray to me. Purple, I can't see the red hues in purple. So purple is imagine if you mix blue and brown instead of blue and red. Or orange, imagine mixing yellow and brown instead of yellow and red, if that makes sense.
So do you have to calculate in your head move backwards from being colorblind to editing? Or do you just do what looks good to you colorblind?
That's what I've always done, and it's worked.
Dope.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times when I've especially on portrait shoots when it's, skin tones and stuff are a little bit more important. They say it's not crazy concert lighting. There's definitely times when I'll be hey babe, how does this guy's face look? And she'd be he looks like a tangerine. And I'm cool, dial back the orange, There's definitely times, especially with portrait work. But for whatever reason, it's worked out. I like to think, I got it from my grandfather. It passes through daughters. So that is one thing, I wanted 2 sons. I thought that would have been awesome. I was blessed again with the daughter coming literally any day now. And one of those reasons I'm really excited about having a daughter is because then I can pass that trait down. So if she has a son, there's a 50% chance that her son would be colorblind. So I got it from my grandfather through my mom.
Interesting. But it's an asset to you.
I kind of think it's an advantage. I've convinced myself that it's an advantage at least, Again,
I believe that entirely, because if you saw the world as the same as everybody else, your art wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought on it. Back to even talking about, the anxiety and the mental health stuff. And in the end, for me, my personal choice not to medicate and trying to use that anxiousness as kind of something to propel me forward, instead of looking at it as a crutch, trying to look at it as an advantage. That's kind of the same way that I look at the colorblindness thing is I can sit there and go, oh, I can't see reds. My colors are terrible. Or I just go, shit looks cool to me. People seem to like it, and it's something that I feel is one of the few things that really makes my eyes different than other people's eyes.
100%.
And it seems to be working until it doesn't.
Obviously, it'll keep working. It'll keep working, that's for sure. Let's go mental health route.
Okay.
If you're willing to share.
Yeah.
Because I'm interested in your story.
Yeah.
And kind of what it looked like for you, and feel free to go as deep or not deep as you want. But when did you discover the whole mental health thing? And was it genetic predisposition?
I don't know the answer to the genetic thing. I was raised in a conservative household. I went to an all guys Catholic high school.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of that being in the all guys school that's just kind of like the man up mentality. I always knew from a pretty young age that I thought differently than other people. I didn't really know, I didn't have any education on mental health at the time. I mean, really, there hasn't been much education or resources for mental health until the last few years, honestly. It's sad to say, but it's so crazy because if I tear my ACL, you can go get surgery to fix that. But like the most important thing in our entire body is our brain.
100%.
You know, like if you think about like a computer, it's like the ACL is like if you broke a key on the keyboard, but like the brain is like the motherboard. If the motherboard goes bad, the whole computer is shot. You know, you can get a new keyboard. So that's something that I always thought differently. I didn't really know what mental health was. I didn't know much about it. I knew at a very young age, not a very young age, but like middle school into high school, like.
What were the symptoms?
I mean, just constant anxiety, honestly. Like I always
Like
had
panic attacks?
Yeah, for sure. And I got on medication in high school. I got on like for ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD, like pretty severe in I think freshman or sophomore year of high school. And I tried, Vyvanse and Adderall and a few other different medications. And honestly, I just didn't react well to them. So I started kind of coping in non-healthy ways. I went from, and the Vyvanse is such an upper that I wouldn't eat, so then my blood sugar would drop. And then that would basically, when I crashed from the Vyvanse and stuff, like I would kind of go into like basically a full on, I would just see red and I would just like break shit, honestly. Like there was a time when I was trying to make a milkshake and the ice cream was too frozen and we didn't have enough milk. And like, I just kicked down the back door of our house because I was mad. Like things like that were like, it was almost out of body experiences. So then I coped with that by drinking caffeine. And I would drink, multiple Monsters a day. I mean, we would go to Sam's Club and I would get cases of Monster Energy. Still love them to this day. But I've actually been off of caffeine, off of any psychostimulants for like 12 years now.
Wow.
But it really wasn't until Nashville that I kind of started to dial things in. And it really got bad when I had my first kid. We kind of ran into there's this massive childcare crisis, in my opinion, at least in Nashville, where
you can't get a daycare.
You can't get a daycare for like 9 months.
Yeah,
I mean,
waitlisted.
We were waitlisted with daycare. Like my wife works at the Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, and they offer discounted daycare through them. They have 10 facilities around, and we gave them our due date and all that stuff. And Stone was born June 15th of 2021, and he was not in daycare until I think it was like May 2nd of 2022. So we waited almost a year to get into the employee daycare, which is supposed to be a benefit, and nannies cost like $60,000 a year. So then at that point, why is Sarah working? But we need healthcare, so she has to work. So I was kind of caught in the middle on the back end of 2021, front end of 2022 in a situation where I'm like, I'm breadwinner and childcare. That's really, really hard to do. We had a beautiful, amazing woman named Lena Robinson who came in and she was able to she was in college at the time at Trevecca, and she was able to work until like 1 o'clock, and then she had to go to softball practice because she played softball for him. And she was incredible. And literally, I mean, without her, I don't know that I'd be here today, truthfully. But that 1 o'clock, I'd do as much as I could until 1 o'clock, and I'd be racing home because I want to get home so she could get to softball practice in time, so she didn't have to run laps because I was late. So that 9-10 months or whatever was really, really difficult to me, to the point where I checked myself into the Vanderbilt Psychiatric Hospital in their partial hospitalization program, and it's a few weeks in there. 9 to 5 every day. Sarah would drop me off on her way to work and pick me up on her way home. And it was just intensive therapy, one-on-one and group therapy every single day. Like they take your phone. Like I was just like in it, man. And it was really a pretty intense. I mean, the hairs on my back are standing up thinking about it. Like it was a pretty intense experience for me, but it was life-changing, truthfully. I mean, the tools that they were able to give me were incredible. The people that I met there were incredible, and it was wild. I think one of the biggest benefits of that was you go in there, and there's this room, and when you first go in there, and there's 12 people in the program at a time or whatever, and everyone goes in different days, so people cycle in and out every day. And I remember going in there and doing the group sessions and then bringing up different aspects of life and different topics and talking about these different things. And it was really inspiring to me and kind of eye-opening to me that all of the people in there, like, they would say things and I'd be like, oh my God, that's exactly how I think. That's exactly how I feel. And being able to realize that you're not alone in that, and that this stuff, it's okay to feel and it's okay to think the way that you think. And just because your brain is wired differently than someone else's brain does not mean that you are wrong or you are bad. You know, because I sat there and I'm feeling and thinking these things, and then I'm thinking, man, I must be broken or I must be fucked up because I'm thinking this way or I'm, feeling this way. When in reality, like, more people than not have some sort of mental health disorder, whether it is an ADD or an ADHD, or whether it is a bipolar, or like, I mean, almost everybody in my life now, like, now that, again, mental health is kind of coming to the surface, everyone has something. If you don't, then God bless you. You are lucky. I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I've suffered, again, the ADHD thing, and then kind of realized through the PHP program at Vanderbilt that, like, obsessive compulsive is like, that is the root of all of my stuff. And it's not like, hey, I need to make sure all my pens are lined up. It is like I think I mentioned before we started recording, I was like, if I don't kiss my dog goodbye, and this sounds crazy, but like, I mean, I got him in college because of a panic attack, and I, was like, I need some accountability, so I literally don't think about killing myself, because if I do, then what's this dog gonna do? He's the best. He's like a 9-year-old Frenchie, and time is ticking, but I love him. But like, if I don't kiss him before I leave, like, I truly am convinced that, like, I won't come home to him being there. And it's irrational and it's stupid and it's silly, and I know that, but what if it's not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that has always been kind of those intrusive thoughts. And that's just one example of many, as I'm sure you can relate to. Like, it's just all these different things, and knowing that I'm not alone in that, and knowing that it's okay to feel these ways, and it's okay to think these ways, and you're not going to act on the thoughts. Like, no, I know that, but like, I think understanding that we're not alone, and understanding that everyone has their own struggle, whether they choose to announce it or not, whether they choose to talk about it or not, we all need to understand that everyone is going through something, because all anyone sees is this.
Yeah.
It's a highlight reel. My Instagram makes my life look awesome, but like, there are really bad days and there are really good days, and there are ups and there are downs. And like, there are days when I'm like, why do I need to be here? Why do I need to like be alive? And there are days when it's like, why would I not? And that roller coaster is really difficult. And I think a lot more people can relate to that than not. And I think getting that out there and talking about that is something that's really important, because you're not alone. Like, it's okay to not be okay. Like, it's okay to feel certain ways. It's okay to think about different things. Like, as long as you're not acting on these intrusive thoughts and stuff, like, process them. Like, go to therapy. Like, I had a therapist for a while named Caroline, and she used to tell me, like, you need to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's something that just stuck with me. And every day I try to, like, if I'm in an uncomfortable situation, go, how can I be comfortable being uncomfortable? Because anything great in my life has come from uncomfortability. Moving to Nashville, super uncomfortable. Not having a job for 10 months in Nashville, super uncomfortable. But we're doing all right now,
Yeah.
And it's just wild, because you can sit there and especially in the music industry, you have these highs where, like, you're on stage in front of 50,000 people at Nissan Stadium, and you're getting texts from all these people that they're like, holy cow, this is crazy, see you up there, it's awesome. And then you go home and it's just like silence, and you're like, whoa. And that goes back to the brain. Then your brain is just running. And then it's like, well, how do you maintain that high?
Yeah, because you had an adrenaline dump.
Yeah. And then you've got everything going, all that was oxytocin and endorphins and all that stuff going. And then it's like a car. It's like a phone. You use the phone a lot, you're going to have to recharge it.
Yeah.
And as long as when you're in that recharge phase, you're not doing anything that's going to harm yourself, others, or your livelihood, like, learning the tools to cope with the lows and with the recharge, I think is what's changed my life. And And, I'm not perfect. I don't think I'll ever be fully okay.
But what is okay?
I have no idea.
I don't know if anybody does, really. To be honest with you, I want to acknowledge you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And opening up, because mental health needs to be destigmatized.
Yeah.
I think it is slowly.
Yeah.
I think we see it on social media. I myself went to this place called the Amen Clinic. I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a guy, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he's actually the psychiatrist for some like Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus.
Wow.
But he has a few clinics around the country, and all of the psychiatrists are trained by him, and they do a brain scan. And so I sold my guitar to Vince Gill, like pawned my guitar to Vince Gill, and I'm going to buy it back. But that funded me getting my brain scanned, and I learned that I had a PTSD brain scan.
Wow.
And so it's pretty crazy. So this guy's like kind of revolutionized a way to be able to actually look at the brain, because for years I had pills thrown at me.
Same.
And it was like some would work, some wouldn't. SSRIs I couldn't stand. And I have to take medication. And I feel kind of guilty for it, to be honest with you.
Why?
That's a good question. I feel like some of the medicine that I take is abused. And because of that, I'm grouped in with, I'm like a bad person because I take a medicine that some people abuse.
Yeah.
I think that,
as long as you're not abusing it.
Yeah. But then there's always a little voice in my head that's like, did you take too much or too little? Because sometimes it's hard to dial in like medicines that work that aren't like long form medicines.
Is it like a PRN?
No, it's a benzo.
Okay.
Sometimes your stress level affects how the medicine acts, or how much I ate or didn't eat, or if I had coffee or I didn't. And I think if I ever feel like, oh, I took too much or whatever, and it's not like I'm like crazy, like drugged out, but I'll be like a little drowsy or something, I'll feel guilty because I'll feel like, oh, I, shouldn't have done this. Yeah. But based off of my brain scan, they were able to, and they did DNA testing, and then the swab test to see what medicines would work with. It's like a saliva test. It's crazy. They checked my hormones, found out my testosterone was like nothing. Wow. So we got my hormones right, like a ton of stuff. But medication to me is a shock absorber. It's one of those things where I hope to encourage people that have the thoughts, the irrational thoughts, the dark feelings, the panic attacks, the depression, to talk to somebody, to talk to your doctor, to get referred. Because on one end, there is like you having the ability to say, I need help. I'm in such a dark place. I need to go somewhere where I'm not alone by myself.
And my wife was a huge help in getting me there. Just for the record, I
already imagined that your wife was a key component to that.
And she was the one that like did the research she works at Vanderbilt. She did the research on this stuff, and she actually works in the behavioral health unit. So she was able to go and say, hey, you don't need to just go check yourself in and be inpatient yet. She's like, but I can see the route that you're going, and what are your thoughts on these different things? And it took me a while to go, yes, I'm down to do that. Yeah. But then eventually you have that moment and you go, something's got to change. Yeah. Yeah. If it doesn't work, I'm right where I started. Whatever.
Totally. And then the tools that they gave you, and what I like what you said is that it's human to feel depleted. Like you do the arena thing. I see you at Nissan Stadium, and it feels like a Coldplay show or something with all the bracelets flashing and the fire and the fireworks, and it's this crazy thing, and you're out there with a camera running around 25,000 steps, burning calories, having your adrenaline pump, and it's almost, you're on stage too, and side stage, and like, so you're almost you're part of the production in a sense, at least you get to see everything from that. Yeah. And you're so intimately involved in the process and capturing it. Like when you pop down, if you like pop down and like stand right center where the thrust goes out and you're taking pictures, kneel down.
Yeah.
And there's however many thousands of people.
It's cool.
Like, that's got to be exhilarating.
It's pretty cool.
But
it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I would exactly.
Like, don't fuck up.
Yeah, dude. Oh man, I believe it, man. And so my therapist once said, like, you only have so many spoons in a day. And I loved this analogy. And she said, maybe there's certain activities that take 2 spoons. But maybe like there's an activity where you had to do something really hard emotionally and it took like 6 of your 10 spoons.
Yeah.
And at the end, when it's like, I have no spoons left to give, like I can't dish out any more spoons.
Yeah.
You have to rest so you can have the spoons to do your next 10.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I thought it was a cool analogy, and I feel like there's got to be a huge, and I know from like my background was in music, and that's why we moved to Nashville, and performing, the anticipatory anxiety of performance was always very difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was much harder than the show itself. And I always remember feeling this adrenaline dump and just feeling so fatigued when I got off stage.
Yeah.
And just being like drained. And I'm like, I need a cup of coffee. And it was like my 10 spoons were up before I ever performed because of the, you know.
But then your
anxiety.
body's looking for a fake spoon.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And then you start looking for that fake spoon. And there's all kinds of fake spoons out there that people use to cope. And so it's just interesting what you say about, you know, not being afraid to address the fact that you need to rest. And I think that's something in the creative world that we don't talk about. Basically, you feel like you should be going all the time.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, man. And as a creative, we got to take care of ourselves because you only have so much creativity to give.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Completely. Yeah, especially, I mean, there's so many times when like you're sitting there and you've given all your creative spoons for the day, and then it's a call, hey, we need this now. And I'm like, I can do it now, but it's going to be dog shit. Give me 48 hours and it'll be awesome. It's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I don't want to do it. I'll put in the hours, but it's going to be better if you give me time. It's still going to take, if it's a 2-hour project, 2-hour task, let's say, let me spend the 2 hours on it tomorrow when I've had a full night's rest and I can actually put 100% into it. All I have is 50% to give now. Do you want it to be half-assed now or full-assed tomorrow?
Yeah. I love that, man.
You know?
And that's so great to be honest about it too and be able to be like, yeah, this is a reality. I'm a creative person. I use creative energy.
Yeah.
And the reason that I get paid what I get paid is because of my creativity and my ability to be creative and function at a level of creativity that is excellent. Mm-hmm. And if I don't have that and I can't offer that, then I'm doing you a disservice.
Yeah. And if they say, we don't care, we need it now, then cool. Here's this. I threw it together for you.
Yeah.
You know, like if it's really that crucial, you know, but I just feel like so much of that is like trying to find that recharge and trying to find it. For me, it's like, it's hard. I'm sure same thing with you. Like when your hobby becomes a career, when your hobby becomes the way that you support yourself and your family and your life and pay your mortgage and all that, like how do you creatively recharge? You know, like what have you found that you're able to creatively recharge when you go, well, this is what I love to do. Then it became my livelihood. So now it's not a hobby anymore. Like trying to find something that is a hobby. And that's something that I don't know what I like to do. Like my whole identity has been, you know, being a creative and being a photographer. Like again, since like college, especially, it was like, I'm the guy with the camera, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, I almost always have a camera on me. Like if it's a family event, I've got a camera. If I'm going to a friend's birthday party, I've got a camera, but that's because I love to do that. So it's trying to find that balance. And when my son was born, I bought my first Leica and I was like, this is my fun camera. This is my camera to take pictures of my kid and my wife and my family. And having that as like a toy, I don't use it for work ever. I bring it with me and then every once in a while I'll whip it out for fun. But like so for me, it was trying to find, how do I separate the career? Because I still love photography. That is my hobby. But trying to separate those two where it doesn't become work. You know, like this camera, my Sony's, those to me, those are tools. That is what I use to pay my bills. That is what I use to create for my clients. And then my Leica, like that is, for me, that is fun. That is what I enjoy. That is like, that's where I try to find that separation. But it's so interesting to me that doing the same exact thing, taking and editing photos on this camera versus taking and editing photos on this camera is fun versus work. You know, and trying to keep that separation and trying to find that separation was really, really hard, and still is hard, you know, because it is the same thing. But it's just wild how the same exact task can both completely deplete my creative energy and recharge it at the same time. It's really kind of a bizarre thing.
And I feel like I could talk to you all day long.
Dude, I feel the same way.
You know how I got that guitar when Harlan was born? Yeah. It's the exact same thing. Yeah. Like,
kind of crazy.
Dude, like I got a guitar because of the fact that all the guitars I owned were represented work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need a guitar that doesn't represent anything and is not tied to thoughts of experiences or thoughts of work or thoughts of negative things or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so it just hangs on the wall in our living room, and my son likes to play it with me.
Yeah. That is crazy, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Are we the same?
I don't know. There's a lot of parallels, man. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that in the creative world, you don't always meet people like that, but it's resounding with me what you're saying. And I know that if it resounds with me, it's resounding with other people too.
I hope so.
I want to ask you a few fun questions
Let's go.
as we wrap up. All right. So people, you know, obviously they're obsessed with Morgan Wallen. You're the photographer for Morgan Wallen. So tell me some fun stories about that, like you were telling me on the phone about when he cut his hair.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a surprise to all of us. That was right before Columbus. We showed up and literally he had shaved his head. But a couple of weeks later, maybe it was like a month later, he wanted, because he hadn't revealed it, he kept a hat on the whole show. He had kept his hat on for any public appearance because I think he shaved it a little bit more than he kind of anticipated. I mean, he did it by himself at his house in his bathroom. He just randomly, I guess, got a craving to shave it. But once it grew back a little bit, he was doing a spread with Billboard. And they were doing this photo shoot they rented like an Airbnb over in Madison. And they were doing, I mean, it's this, you can Google it, it's this big billboard thing on Morgan Wallen and his rise and all this stuff. And they had me and old David there. Old David, normal David, I guess. It's so confusing, man. But they had me and David there because they wanted to get outside of the billboard thing while he's in hair and makeup, while he's, you know, has his stylist there. Let's get some headshots for press with the new hair to kind of unveil it. So they're shooting it's the final setup that they're shooting, and they're on like the back porch of this house in Madison. There's these stairs on the side that go down by this garage, and it overlooks the river there. And so they're doing this last look, and me and David go down the stairs. I'm like, you know, scoping out a spot to do these press headshots because once he's done, he's just gonna change shirts and pop down there. And we're down there looking around, and all of a sudden, dude, I hear this like scuffling noise, and then there's this dog, and like running at us, and this dog like comes and latches onto my ankle and just starts like just attacking me, you know? Oh it was crazy, dude. So I'm down there like, what the fuck? And I'm like kicking this dog, and like 20 feet away, they're shooting like Morgan Wallen's big billboard spread. And they're all like, what is happening? You know, like they're all looking down there, and I'm like, I still have a scar on my leg from it. It was like bleeding down my sock into my shoe and stuff.
Oh.
And it was absolutely crazy. One of the wildest things about it is that like when the dog came at me, I reacted. And when I reacted, I had my camera in my hand. I was holding the shutter down. So I have a photo of the dog like coming at me.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. But literally like 5 minutes after that, like I went inside, I like, cleaned my leg off. Morgan came inside. It was like, dude, are you good? We went back out there, and took the press headshots, and that's like they call it like the cop photo. But it ended up getting like 1 million likes on Instagram. It was the first photo that he had posted with like his new short hair and everything. And like, it was crazy, man. But like, there's
and you got to take that?
Yeah, that was my photo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right after you got attacked by a dog.
I was actively bleeding when I took that photo, and then it got 1 million likes on Instagram.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, it's awesome and not awesome, but it's a great story to tell for the rest of your life.
I mean, now that it's all done and it's healed, it's awesome, But at the time, I was like, and I'm sitting there going, it's the weirdest thing. I have actually in 5th grade, a German Shepherd chased me down on my bike and ripped me off my bike and put like a hole in my all the way through like my ankle behind my Achilles tendon.
Oh, wow.
Same ankle, like crazy situation. So it was like, I'm not super keen on dogs I don't know anyway. Huge dog person, but dogs I don't know kind of freak me out. So I don't know if this dog like sensed a little bit of that uneasiness or what, but yeah, it was a wild experience. But still got the photo.
Got the photo. Look, got 1 million likes. It revealed his bald head. Yeah, shaved head to the world.
Literally, and he had a mustache at the time too. So everyone just called Officer Wallen, and all the comments, and Ernest and Hardy were all giving him shit for it. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was like, that's one of those photos that will I think always be on my website, just because one, I obviously have a pretty intense emotional connection with it.
Yeah.
And two, I mean, it was a pretty iconic photo that I think will live, for quite a long time. One of my favorite photos I've ever taken. Just again, because of all of that went into it, I definitely will always have that connection to that photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And that's that secret. You just told the secret behind the story.
Yeah.
Because the story was the head and that you did the photo. But the secret is that your ankle's bleeding.
Secret is I've got a hole in my leg.
Yeah.
But then after, it was like, Kathleen, Morgan's publicist, was like, you need to go to the hospital, you need to get it checked out. But like, that was like 5 o'clock. I had bus call with Larry Fleet like 2 hours later. So I just went home. I literally just dumped rubbing alcohol in it, burnt like hell, threw peroxide in it after that, watched all the bacteria bubble out, wrapped it up, and I was shooting a show 24 hours later.
Crazy, man.
It was wild. Yeah.
People are going to want to know what the off-stage, off-camera Morgan Wallen's like.
He's awesome. Like, seriously, I can't speak more highly of the guy. Like, he is an incredibly thoughtful human, makes so many extra efforts. Like, after night 3 at Nissan, he's just wrapped up. He sold 150,000 plus tickets this weekend, and he was jumping in the SUV, and they have like a police escort every night that gets him out of there because it's it gets crazy. And I went up to him, I was like, hey man, remember, I'm not going to see you for a few weeks because baby's coming. And my wife was standing behind me, and he like reached out to her and he gave her a big hug and was like, congrats, like anything you need, like so happy that you let us have him. And it was moments like that are always just so awesome, where he doesn't have to go above and beyond and do stuff like that. Like, we were in Toronto last year, part of that month-long Canada run. It was the last show of 3 shows at, I forget some amphitheater there, I forget what it's called. And before every show, he has his core people, and he always like dabs everybody up and gives them a hug. He's like, let's go, boy, and gets everybody fired up. And he was literally like taking steps to walk on stage, and he turned around and made eye contact with me. We hadn't like dabbed up yet. He turned around, ran over to me, like gave me a hug, and then ran on stage. Like, little moments like that you can just tell, like, he's so socially aware of everything going on. And that's really like something that's always impressed me, is he always makes those efforts. And you can tell, like, before a show, he's looking for his people. And he has his little like rituals with each person, before the show. And he's just a great person, man. Like, I think everybody needs to look past all of their beliefs and all of their thoughts that they have on him. And like, everybody's human. And I can't imagine, I mean, his birthday's, I think, next week. Like, my birthday was last week. Like, we're literally 13 days apart age-wise, and I cannot possibly imagine being in his shoes. If I was in his shoes, man, I'd probably be dead because I would have done something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he is going to continually be under scrutiny by the public, and people love to see someone fall from grace.
Yeah.
Or they love to see them crumble.
Yeah.
Or they love to see the potential downward spiral of someone.
Oh, the human race focuses on the negative.
They do.
I mean, look at the news. That's why I don't watch the news anymore.
So I don't either. We stopped watching the news. It's been the best thing.
Yeah.
And so to hear that about Morgan's cool, because so many people think, oh, Morgan's this, Morgan's that, but they don't think, is my life under scrutiny? Am I being watched 24/7? Can I go out and have a good time and just be normal?
Yeah.
Do I have to act like perfect all the time? You know, that's one of those things where it's like, I'm not surprised when someone does something a little crazy, you know, because you have to be perfect all the time. There's got to be a part of you where it's like, I just want to like not be perfect, you know, like I'm human.
Yeah, I can't imagine being in his position. And look at like Tim McGraw and Kenny Chesney, and 20 years ago, they got arrested in Buffalo, New York, because Kenny Chesney stole a cop's horse and rode off on the horse. And then Tim McGraw got in like a felony assault on a police officer for stopping the cop from chasing Kenny on the horse. That's a true story.
Really?
I think it was 2002 or something like that. Yeah, it's like 20 years ago. Like being in that position, being in the limelight lends itself to that, because I think it's got to be impossibly hard to be in that position.
Yeah.
You know, and I think for everyone that's judging, you know, Tim and Kenny, or judging Morgan, or judging whoever for doing whatever, you know, it goes back to the parenting thing. Like, I'm like Stone. I don't care if you don't like broccoli, but try the broccoli before you tell me you don't like it. If you want to judge Morgan, I don't care. You want to think badly about him, I don't care. Get to know him first, though. If you get to know him and you spend time with him and you think he sucks, I'll respect your opinion. But until you've given the guy a chance, I don't have any respect for people that don't know somebody and say that he's a bad guy or they don't like him. I mean, the whole don't judge a book by the cover thing. Don't tell me a movie sucks if you haven't watched it.
Yeah. And people love nothing more than to get on their phones and say terrible things and hide behind
Keyboard
their phones.
hard ass.
Yeah, dude.
Come say it to my face.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
For real, man. I'm with you.
If they get in the room with him, they'll be like, oh my God, you know?
Yeah. I had the same person that would leave the most hateful comment would probably want a picture.
And an autograph.
Yeah.
And a whatever, you know?
And then they'd see like, oh, he took the time.
Yeah. And he will. He's staying after the show. They turn house lights on. Crew is loading out. And he stands out on that thrust for like literally 10 minutes and signs until basically they say, hey, you need to get in the car before you lose the police escort, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I've only grown to like him as take the music, take the stadiums as a human more and more each time, like every time that we spend with him. Yeah. There's a reason he got to where he is.
You had this idea on the phone when we were talking about having a Facebook group for moms of touring artists, crew, etc. Have you ever shared that publicly?
No.
Will we talk about it?
We can talk about it.
Yeah, tell me what
I haven't done anything with it.
No, but tell me about the idea, because I think that this is really cool.
I mean, I just feel like there's so many, like, back to like the parenting thing and the family thing and kind of the hardships of being on the road with a family and trying to maintain a relationship and trying to with your wife or husband or daughter or son or all of that, you know, and I think it's really important. As much as the touring people need the support and need the help, I think that the wives and the husbands at home really need that too, because they're the ones that are holding down the fort. Like, if Stone's having a bad day and he's in his terrible twos and throwing a tantrum and doing whatever he's doing, like, I mean, she'll call me and vent about it, but I can't really do anything. So I feel like it would be super beneficial to have like a touring moms or touring dads or wives of touring dads or whatever it's called, whether it's a Facebook group or some sort of community where people in similar situations can get together. And I don't think it's a super novel concept to try and get like-minded people together. But even like this weekend, the Nashville shows, like a lot of the wives were out because we're in town, you know, and seeing them being able to connect and being able to talk to each other about their boyfriend or husband or whatever being gone and having to do this stuff on your own and having to parent on your own and having that community, I think would be super beneficial for everybody involved. I think if Sarah had a group of 10 women who all had kids of similar ages, whose husbands all toured full time, I think that would be incredibly beneficial, not only for her and those other women, but also for me and those other men. Because I feel like there's so many times where we find ourselves in unique positions where it's hard to have friends outside of touring because of the schedule. We work weekends, everyone else works weekdays, and same with the wives. Like for my wife, like weekends come and it's like, that's supposed to be the time where she has off and she has a break from work. Cause her job being a social worker is like, I'm so glad that she does what she does because it balances out me being able to do what I do. And I feel like if on those weekends she could text a group or hit up a group on Facebook and go, hey, does anyone want to go to the zoo? Like we have a zoo pass, I think allows like 4 adults and 10 kids or something. It's like she could go, hey, let's get a few moms and 5 or 6 kids and go look at some giraffes. And I mean, they've got a freaking tiger at the zoo and you can go up to the glass. It's like right there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But like for her to be able to have a community to do that, I think would be unbelievably beneficial, again, to everybody involved, because then she can feel like she has her community at home. I know that I have my second family on the road, but I feel like a lot of times she doesn't have that second family because when I'm gone and she's not working, all she has time to do is like take care of the kid and the dogs and the house. And there's so many times when we have family in town because family travels on weekends because they work normal jobs and I'm not there and she's entertaining my family or doing that. But if she could have that support from women in similar situations and other wives and other parents in similar situations where their significant others are touring, I feel like that would change those couple days a week where she's at home dealing with all that stuff, knowing that she has that support group, and I don't know exactly what it looks like. To me, that was just me brainstorming, trying to think of ways to solve problems. Because like we talked about, brains not turning off. And I just feel like that could solve a lot of problems for a lot of people where married couples might be going through similar situations and similar fights that like, hey, this isn't a problem with me and you. This is a problem with, the touring aspect, having a spouse on the road. Because you look around on the road and most of the people are single or divorced. And it's like, it's really sad. And I feel like this could potentially help save relationships, knowing that the spouses have that support group and have like just that sense of community and belonging and being able to relate. Because she can go hang out with her friends that do what she does, but their husbands are sitting at home drinking beer or doing whatever. It's like, whereas couples that are like, especially married ones, to me is, it's obviously that next step, especially parents. We get a very, very, very limited amount of time together. Like even like with the kid, like if I get home on a Sunday morning, first of all, I'm exhausted. So it's just, okay, cool. I don't have a choice but turn it on and do the thing Sunday. And then we have from, 5 p.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. is she gets home and it's got to get home, get the kid going, keep him entertained, cook dinner, clean the house, and we're both tag teaming all this stuff, get the kid down for bed. All of a sudden it's 8 o'clock. She's worked all day. I've worked all day. And it's just like the 8 o'clock to 9:30 hour that we have, the 90 minutes a day that we have is exhausting. You're just like, we don't have that recharge. And I feel like a lot of times like Sarah doesn't get a recharge, works all day, takes care of the kid, gets him down. I come home and I'm cool dad's home and we're going to play and do all this stuff. So she's keeping up with that, especially now that she's 9 months pregnant. It's getting more and more difficult, obviously. But like when this second one comes and Stone's having a bad day, but she's trying to take care of Kennedy, which will be our daughter's name, like having somewhere she can call some of her girlfriends and they can bring their kid over and they can help. The kids can entertain each other while the wives can talk and deal with the baby and take care of the baby and talk about these times and these struggles, because there are these hardships that no one talks about. Mm-hmm. There's support for touring people. I don't feel like there's that support for touring wives or touring husbands,
I think this could be the catalyst to a movement.
I hope so, man. I'm just trying to help my wife out. She
'Cause I
does
know
so
that-
much for me and my family that I'm like trying to find that second family for her.
I know that even for not like, I think it's interesting to be, because Nashville's predominantly transplants to people that moved here.
Yeah.
And when you get to the husband, wife with kid, it gets a lot more narrow.
Yeah.
And I think that there's even moms out there that are like, I'm just having a hard time finding other mom friends that can relate, that have young kids who I can hang out with.
Well, especially working moms. When do they have time to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So I know there's the need even for that. Like there's on the touring side, obviously, but like for wives and moms with little ones, it's like a huge need outside of even that. I think it's bigger than probably we could imagine.
Yeah.
Because it's weird to be in a city so big yet feel so lonely.
Yeah.
And I've felt that myself, where it's like hard to make friends or whatever. But then when you're done working, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I have the energy to go hang out or drive.
Oh, totally.
You know, but I love the idea that you have to connect moms. And it's almost like you have your road family and they would have their road mom family.
Yeah, like they need like I have my second family, they need their second family.
I think
and we're transplants both. My wife and I are both from Florida. Her dad passed away a few years ago. So her mom is in Florida. My parents are both in Florida. You know, my brother and her sister have both moved up, but they're, 25, 24 years old and, in a different phase of life, and I think it's hard to, without having grandparents here, without having that actual family support here. I mean, that's a big struggle of ours is not having that real like blood support system here. And so how can we try and create that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it's the same for us, man. We moved here from California a little over 5 years ago and have no family in Nashville except for my dad, who had me at age 45, was in Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange, and now has a bunch of health stuff to the point where he's on oxygen 24/7 at the house. And that's real great for us to be able to see him, and for Harlan, our little boy, to be able to, see and hang out with Grandpa, and he loves our son. But that's the, family we have here, which is great. But at the same time, like my wife's side of the family's big and they're not here. And like, I totally understand that feeling of isolation when you go somewhere to chase a dream. And these are the sacrifices that are the reality of going after a dream.
Yeah.
And these are the things you don't see on Instagram, as you stated earlier. Mm-hmm. Everyone sees the beautiful photo, but they don't see the mental health side. They don't see the loneliness. They don't see the, at home issues, or even like the marriage issues that come up due to the fact of the lifestyle or whatever it is. Or they don't see the hard times and moving here without a job, not knowing how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want to go for it, it's not like I moved to Nashville and then the next day I am getting paid a ton of money doing what I dreamed to do.
My first tour, I was making $50 a day. 3 shows a week. You can do the math on that. Try living on $600 a month in Nashville.
Yeah, you'd be homeless.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Luckily, again, I kept pushing myself and it worked out. But like, we talking about following the dream and the difficulties of following the dream, but like, we both followed my dream.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't her. Like, we're living the dream life in the sense of like, we have a house and the dogs and the kid and the picket fence, and it's like, it's great, like the American dream. But like, I don't think if I would have said, let's move to Florida, I've got a degree in business, like, let's go use my business degree, I'm going to get a job. Like, I think that would have been more of her dream than moving to Nashville. Now, like, we both have fallen in love with Nashville and the lifestyle and everything that we do. And she does have friends and, work and all that stuff. But like, she followed my dream. Like, I can't imagine putting myself in that position. I don't know that I would have been able to do what she did. to just drop everything, leave Florida, leave home, leave family, move 700 or whatever miles away to follow someone else's dream, you know? And I really can't put into words how appreciative and thankful I am of that, because I know that as much of a sacrifice as I'm making being gone, she's making that sacrifice being home, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%.
So like, how can we sit there and try and not build that up and not help her out and the thousands of women and other men that are home that their spouses are there and they're primary caretakers. They're making money, and Nashville's so expensive that I don't really know many married couples that only one person works.
Yeah.
Almost all of my friends, both people have jobs.
Yeah.
Because you have to. You want a one-bedroom apartment within striking distance of Nashville. You're paying $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
For these apartments and buying a house. You know, if you want a half decent house, again within striking distance, you're spending $500,000 at the minimum.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. Like we spent $290,000 on our house. If you would have told me something like before, I would have said, "Oh, we're gonna buy a house for $150,000." But believe it or not, it made more financial sense to buy a house than to rent. And that was we saved $500 a month by buying a house. And I never would have expected to do that. And we couldn't afford it at the time, but it was like, we also couldn't afford not to, you know? And that's part of being a transplant and stuff, is everyone lives so far away. Like, so our best friends moved to Franklin a couple of years ago, and we live in Whites Creek. So we're north of town, they're south of town. It's an hour.
Yeah.
Growing up in Tampa, if my friend lived in Orlando, I would have never seen them. I'm like, you live in Orlando, that's an hour away.
Exactly.
You know, literally, like, if I'm going to Orlando, I'm going to Disney World, you know?
Yeah.
So it's I think that is a hard reality too, is how far apart people are having to live. Like, we know people that are moving to Clarksville because it's half the price.
Yeah.
You know, you've got people out in Kingston Springs and Pegram and people in Lebanon. And it's like,
you have to.
Yeah.
If you can't pay $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment downtown or whatever, or rent a home for at least the same amount,
and then try to afford childcare too. I mean, you're talking $2,000 a month for an apartment.
Oh,
basic daycare is gonna be $1,500 a month. I mean, that's $3,500. That's 40-something grand a year, and you haven't even eaten yet, and you don't have a car, you don't have insurance. You know, God forbid you want to go out and get dinner.
Yeah, dude, we haven't talked like having a car payment and insurance for your car and your cell phone and groceries.
Yeah,
and the prices of everything skyrocketing.
Yeah.
I do think that it's advantageous for younger people to move here without the responsibility of children and marriage.
Yeah.
But it's very different. And you actually just made me feel a little convicted, because my wife is the exact same. Like, we moved here for my dream. She wanted to do it. She was very supportive and excited to go somewhere new. But at the same time, it's like, makes me have a different perspective. You have a very global perspective on where you are in your relationship with your wife and your family system, which is interesting and makes me think about my own family and where I should probably step up more than I do in certain areas with our kid, because my wife bears the majority of the responsibility for our son, and I come home and it's like, I need to muster up the courage to like have the energy, you know, my spoons are gone or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, I need to play with my boy and have that. And I need to give my wife a break, because she's been with this really needy 15-month-old toddler all day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
And luckily we've made it to a place where we have daycare 2 days a week. And then we have a babysitter 1 day a week for a little while. But I mean, even that, you're still 4 days a week with the little one. I mean, and then being self-employed and all of that, the struggles that come with that, as you know.
Where's the next paycheck coming from?
Yeah. And you even think long-term, like you said, retirement. My buddies out on tour with big artists are like, when the singles stop and the radio stops playing and they stop hitting, it's like, where's my next big gig gonna come from or whatever?
Yeah.
And those are the thoughts that you have on the creative end in the music business, which I find that people also have to think about.
Yeah.
friends, remember that the music business is a business. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Stephan Hogan Podcast with me, Stephan Hogan. Thanks for tuning in, and a huge thank you to Matt Paskert for joining us and sharing his incredible stories and insights. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Also, give us a like, follow us for more updates, and share the episode with your friends and family to help spread the word. Your support means the world to us and helps keep this show going. Until next time, keep tuning in for more great conversations right here on the Stephan Hogan Podcast. I will see you next Monday. Peace.